The gospel reading today is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. You're probably becoming a little familiar with these words since we've been using the same passage throughout this sermon series. We know them as the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is the reading of the word of our Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. We've been working our way through the Beatitudes the last few weeks. Now, one of the interesting things about the Beatitudes is that all of them are about relationships. In fact, 4 of them are about our relationship with God, and 4 of them are about our relationships with other people. So that's something you can keep in mind as we talk about these. Now, I apologize to the men in the crowd. You know, sometimes we have to use a little self-deprecating humor, just to stay in good standing with our ladies. And so these probably fall into that category. What is the difference between men and government bonds? The bonds will eventually mature. I apologize. It gets worse, I promise you. Why are blonde jokes so short? So men can remember them. Yeah. How many men does it take to change a roll of toilet paper? We don't know. It's never happened. What do you call a woman who knows where her husband is every night? A widow. Yeah. And this one's just a teeny bit naughty, so I'll just apologize for that in advance. Why are married women a little more portly than single women? Well, you see, single women come home, they see what's in the fridge, and they go to bed. Married women come home, they see what's in the bed, and they go to the fridge. Yeah. Matthew 5:7. Happy are the merciful, for they will have mercy shown to them. And mercy is the focus of our message today. And I hope that you all have mercy on me after those terrible jokes. Yeah. Oh! One voice in the wilderness. The law of direct returns is what we're talking about. If we criticize, chances are we're going to be what? Criticized ourselves, right? If we are friendly, chances are we're going to be what? People are going to be friendly to us, right? If we're merciful, according to God, we'll be shown what? Mercy. Yeah. Pretty important concept in the Christian life. It's kind of that idea that if we live by the sword, we die by the sword, right? Yeah. So what is mercy? You have notes that you can fill in. For some of you who haven't seen this before, each sermon in this series, we have these notes, and if you'll follow along, you'll see that I'm going to be following that outline and filling in the blanks for you. So, the meaning of mercy. Mercy is love in action. Mercy is love in action. Psalm 145:8, God is kind and merciful, slow to get angry, and full of love. We're supposed to be growing, aren't we? We're supposed to become more and more like Him, and that is what growing really means in the Christian life. We become more and more a reflection of God Himself in our lives. The marks of mercy. If I am merciful, I'll be patient with those who are peculiar. Now, chances are, if you find somebody peculiar, what do you think they find you? Yeah. It just kind of seems to go with the territory, you know? Be patient with those you find to be peculiar. We think of people sometimes as good eggs or bad eggs or cracked eggs, and if we think that they're cracked eggs, they probably think that we're cracked eggs. But you know what? We all have days like that, right? We all have days when we're just a little off, and I seem to be having more and more of those the older I get, unfortunately. 1 Thessalonians 5:14, encourage the timid, help the weak, and be patient with everyone. Kind of hard to do. Patience. I've always been told don't pray for it because the way you get it is by forcing it on you, you know. I don't really believe that. However, I do know that it's one of those difficult things, and our society is surrounding us with ways to eliminate our need for patience, right? Our computers have to load faster because we can't wait for it to happen anymore. When I started out in electronics, it was in the late 70s when I built my first computer. It wasn't even late. It was 1976. I built my first computer by hand, and we had to load it with a cassette player. It took some time, sometimes hours to get it to load. Not anymore. We won't wait for it. Can't wait for it to happen. Our food, yeah, it's got to be fast. And I mean really fast, because the car behind you is waiting too, right? Yeah, and sometimes fast seems to be more important than good. And our whole life has been tainted by this idea that everything has to happen fast. One of the ways that we can practice patience is by learning the background of the people that we're talking to, the people that we're building relationships. When we're supposed to be encouraging the timid and helping the weak, honestly, that can be anybody on any given day. One of the things that we tend to do when we describe another person is to say how far they have to go. Have you ever noticed that? Boy, they've got a lot to learn. You know, they've got a lot of growing to do. Men never mature. Who said that? I don't know. We seem to have a problem with that. And so one of the ways that we can have patience is to say, deliberately look at a person and see how far they've come. It's a different way of looking at a person, isn't it? To say, look how far this person has come, not look how far this person has to go. People are lonely, they're hurt, they're depressed, they're filled with anxiety, they have fear. If we can just have a little empathy with all that's going on in another person's life, it helps us have the patience that God wants us to have. Romans 15:7, accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. Hurtful people need friends. They need understanding. They need mercy. And yet our first instinct, if someone is hurting us, is to do what? To hurt them back. That is not God's message. That has never been God's message. It's not what He wants for us to do. He wants us to do that unexpected and unusual thing, and that's to return unkindness with kindness. Yeah. You know, when you're really building up your value in heaven, when you're really storing away all the good things that God calls us to store away, it's when we're doing the hard things. God never asks us to do the easy things. He asks us to do the hard things. The easy things we would do ourselves, right? We're going to do those naturally, sure. God asks us to do the hard things. And the hard thing is to be kind to those who are not kind to us. I'll forgive those who have fallen. So we're supposed to be patient. We're supposed to forgive. It's a little hard to forgive sometimes, isn't it? This woman, she did something incredibly foolish during the first 6 months of her new marriage. It was a mistake. It was wrong. She knew it when it happened. She never made the same mistake again. But for the next 30 years of her marriage, she was reminded about that by her husband. He verbally abused her. He emotionally beat her up on a regular basis. Whenever anything wasn't going his way, he brought up that one past incident in their marriage. One of the things that I have to teach young couples when I counsel them for marriage is the first rule of fair fighting. In fact, there's a whole list that I give them about rules of fair fighting. You may have heard of some of these. But the first rule of fair fighting is never use the past against your partner. Never. See, the thing that happens is we get into this argument and we know our side of the argument is weak, right? It's weak. We know it in our hearts that it's weak. And so basically we change the subject. We start bringing up all the past transgressions of the person that we're talking to, throwing it in their face, and we're not addressing the issue anymore at all, right? And we're not admitting that our position was the weak one. Oh no, now we're creating a fight by bringing up the past. Never use the past against someone else. Encourage the timid, help the weak, and be patient. Colossians 3:13, be gentle and ready to forgive. Never hold grudges. Remember the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Now here's the thing about forgiveness. Whenever you're being forgiven, it always feels right, doesn't it? Oh yeah, I'm forgiven. That's good. That feels great. That's a wonderful place to be. But whenever it's time for you to forgive someone else, it always feels wrong, doesn't it? They don't deserve it. That's for sure. Why would I do that? Why would I let them off the hook? There's a reason it feels good when you're forgiven, feels wrong when it's time to forgive someone else. And that's because we aren't really taught forgiveness very well. We're taught justice. We're all about justice. Justice is what our whole society teaches us from the time that we're infants. It's more about justice than it is about mercy or forgiveness. You're driving down the road and you're obeying all the laws. You're following the speed limit. You're being a good, conscientious driver. You're using your turn signals. You're checking every intersection that it's safe to go through. And somebody comes roaring by you. Now, in that moment, is your first thought, I need to forgive them? Yeah, I'm guessing probably not. You go another half a mile down the road, and there's that guy that just flew, or gal that just flew past you, and he's pulled over on the side of the road. There's a bunch of flashing lights behind him, and you're going, yes, right, that's what should be happening right there. That's justice, folks. We're going to have justice in our life. But God asks us to do the unusual thing. God asks us to have mercy, to have forgiveness. Fallen people need forgiveness. They need mercy. So, marks of mercy. If I am merciful, I'll be patient. If I am merciful, I'll forgive. And the third one is, if I am merciful, I'll help those who are hurting. I'll help those who are hurting. As a church, that's one of the things we're supposed to be about, right? Assistance for the needy. And this church has a pretty fun way to do it. I kind of like your mission. What do you call it? Heartfelt giving. Yeah, that's pretty fun. And people choose each month to support a particular mission. I like that. I think it's fun. It gives you a personal investment in what is happening in terms of your mission giving in the church, and that's wonderful. Proverbs 3:27, whenever you possibly can, do good to those who need it. When we do good to those who need it, we're being like Christ. That's what we're called to be. 1 John 3:17 and 18. If someone who is supposed to be a Christian has enough money to live well and sees a brother in need but won't help him, how can God's love be in him? Let's stop just saying we love people. Let's show it by our actions. Now, one of the theological standpoints that I am trained in, and so you may hear a few quotes here and there, is in Wesleyan theology. And John Wesley had a motto, if you will, that is something that we are carefully taught. And he said this, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. We're supposed to be generous. We're supposed to be loving. We're supposed to be looking for an opportunity to help others. And that's pretty much what God says and what John Wesley says as well. Flip Wilson. Anybody remember Flip Wilson? A comedian. He called himself a Jehovah bystander as opposed to a Jehovah Witness, right? Because he says he doesn't like to get involved. It's a little bit like the witnesses, except he doesn't like to get involved. We need to be involved, and we need to be involved especially where it's difficult. Be merciful to those who doubt, Judges 1:24. Do you ever doubt? Yeah, we all doubt. We all doubt. I doubt. I read the biography of Sister Teresa, and one of the things that surprised me was how much she doubted. Really? Talk about generosity. Talk about sacrifice. Talk about devoting life, to the poor. She did all those things, and yet there were times when she felt so alone that she wondered if God was there at all. Be merciful to those who doubt, because sometimes that's you, and sometimes that's me, and sometimes it's even Sister Teresa. We ask those questions: where is God? When is he going to answer my prayer? And the big one, why did this happen? It's our first question whenever something bad happens. We ask why. Why? When we don't debate a person about whether God exists or not, we are showing them mercy. When we don't demean them or put them down, we are showing them mercy. When we don't desert them in their time of crisis, we are showing them mercy. And the last one, if I am merciful, I'll do good to my enemies. Luke 6:33, 35 and 36. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. But love your enemies, do good to them, then your reward will be great. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Turning enemies into friends. Sometimes there's some real points of irritation in a person's life, and sometimes they end up taking it out on you. We've all had that happen. I was appointed to a new church one time, and there was this woman there that was irritable, at the very least. And she seemed particularly irritated with me. I didn't know where that was coming from, and I didn't really know her. One time, I ended up in the sanctuary with her, just her and me, working on some project. I don't remember what it was, but we talked. I didn't know that her son had been killed in a train accident. Car had been hit less than a year before. It was a huge burden that she carried. Now, I want you to know this person was a force to be reckoned with the whole rest of the time that I was in that church. She was one of those strong personality people, But I prayed with her that day. And she cried that day as I prayed. And somehow, because of all of that, I turned an enemy into a friend. That's what we're supposed to do. It doesn't always seem to work out. But if we're intentional about it, if we are committed to it, so often we can turn those people who are irritated or appear to be irritated with you into a friend. It's definitely something that we're supposed to try to do. Number 3 in your notes, the motive for mercy. Number 1 is because God has shown me mercy. God has shown me mercy. Matthew 18:3, shouldn't you be merciful to other people just as I have been merciful to you? Remember the story of the woman caught in adultery? Yeah, Christ showed mercy, didn't he? Remember when the speck taking out of the neighbor's eye and the log in our own? It's another call for mercy on our part. Another motive for mercy is because I'm going to need more mercy myself. Now, here's the thing about pastors in congregations, and that is, if we get along with the congregation, it's only because of their mercy. Yeah, I guarantee it. Because pastors are people, they make mistakes, they forget things. It's getting worse for me. So if we're going to get along, yeah, see, and that's only because I've been taken care of. Somebody's looking out for me. Yes, the reason that we get along with our congregations is only because of your mercy. We will make mistakes as pastors. James 2:13, the person who makes no allowances for others will find none made for them. We get held to the same standard that we hold other people to, don't we? We must get mercy, give mercy in order to get it. And the third one, motive for mercy, is because it makes me happy. Proverbs 11:17, your own soul is nourished when you are kind. It is destroyed when you are cruel. In fact, Ben Franklin said something very similar. He said, when you are being good to other people, you're being best to yourself. That's why we forgive other people, isn't it? See, we think we shouldn't forgive other people because it lets them off the hook. No, it heals us to forgive other people. When we forgive other people, we're being best to ourselves. When we're being good to other people, we're being best to ourselves. Now, this is a criticism. Every now and then, I will give you a criticism. God didn't say this, Chris did, okay? Yeah. But I believe it to be true, or I wouldn't pass it on. And my criticism for today is God never works just one way. You see, if you go out into the world, if you go to another person, if you go on a mission trip, I used to take my congregations on mission trips. After Rita and Katrina, I took 3 or 4 different mission trips down to Louisiana and into Florida, and we rebuilt houses and did things. If you go with the intention of being a blessing, what's going to happen? You're going to be blessed. It's a guarantee because God never works just one way. God bless.